Hi everyone. I used to be a paediatric nurse and practiced for about 20 years before going to the dark side, working with a minister, coming back into the clinical world to lead a master planning process for the Women's and Children's Hospital here quite a few years ago now, over 10 years ago, and through that set up an arts and health program and then went into the arts and haven't looked back. So it's really wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm mindful that it's after 3 o'clock in the middle of a very busy program, and the last thing I want you to do is go to sleep when I'm about to ask you to close your eyes. So before we do that, I'd like you to all stand up, please. And we're going to do a little improv, a 2-minute improv activity. I'd like you to turn to your neighbour next to you, making sure that nobody is left out. And Danny's going to help me out here. And I just want you to look into their eyes and say your name. So I'll demonstrate this. They'll say their name, you repeat their name, and then they say your name. So, Trish?
Danny.
Trish. And we'll do that 3 times. Off you go. Fantastic. Okay, thank you. When you've done, please sit down. Thank you. Okay. Next, I'm going to take you on a journey into deep time. So I'd like you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, find your feet on the ground. Plant both feet on this beautiful Ghana country under the layers of concrete and infrastructure. Take a big deep breath right down to your toes. And I want you to imagine all of Earth's time condensed into 1 calendar year, where the 1st of January is 4.5 billion years ago, and the 31st of December at midnight is now. So we know that Earth formed as a ball of rock and gas hurtling through space, and it took about 750 million years for the planet to cool, for water to form, and for the conditions to be perfect for life to begin on about the 25th of February as simple single-celled organisms. Those simple single cells started a very primitive form of photosynthesis on the 21st of March, which over the next billion years gave us an atmosphere. So by mid-July, those cells developed a nucleus, creating the conditions perfect for the formation of DNA by mid-September, allowing for an explosion of rich, complex life as genes started mixing. So by early November, we have fish in the oceans, mycelium enriching the soil, creating the conditions for land plants and eventually trees. Early December, insects, amphibians. 6th of December, dinosaurs. 13th of December, early mammals. 25th of December, at 6:30 p.m, dinosaurs go extinct. Somewhere between the 25th of December, bad day for dinosaurs, and the end of the year, the 31st of December, Australia separates from Antarctica and forms Adelaide's extraordinary coastline. 31st of December at lunchtime, 11:30 a.m, hominids, our ape ancestors, stand up. We become bipedal. 11:36 p.m, 24 minutes to midnight, Homo sapiens, humans. 11:54 p.m. are the early fossil records of our First Nations Australians, 60,000 years ago. The history is probably much longer. 11:59 p.m, 1 minute to midnight, is the end of the last ice age, 10 or 11,000 years ago. Egyptian dynasties, Roman Empire, Vikings. 11:59 and 58 seconds, 2 seconds ago, 250 years ago, is the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And here we are now. The sun will burn out in 5 billion years or 14 months. And here you are. We know that more than half of you is not you, that you are trillions of other living beings, microscopic creatures made up from recycled stardust, amoebas, mushrooms and apes, that you are a habitat, that you are nature, that nature is you. And it's taken 4.5 billion years for the conditions to be right for you to evolve as a social, cultural, emotional creature with a capacity for awe and wonder, curiosity and imagination, creativity and intuition, humour and nonsense. We've evolved an intrinsic need to make sense of our own thoughts, connect with other beings, especially humans, and to make meaning from the places we live and the world around us. And when you're ready, I'd like you to open your eyes. Welcome back. Yet somehow, over these last few thousand years, especially the last few hundred years, even the last few decades, we've come to see ourselves as separate from, different than, better than all other living beings and systems. We've developed an egocentric perspective, and that's seen us do some pretty crazy things now that we can see it all through mass data. We've removed 2/3 of the trees on the planet, mined mountains in search of minerals to make materials that are polluting every other system, the oceans we feed from, the air we breathe, and even ourselves, our own bodies. We've changed the weather dramatically. We know we've got about 6 summers left to mitigate 1.5 degrees of global warming. But in reality, we're all connected. And we're all connected internally, and we're all connected with every other living being on the planet. Over hundreds and perhaps thousands of years, we've cultivated the perfect conditions to become increasingly extractive. And these little diagrams on the left are demonstrating some of the thinking around what I mean when I say extractive. So we've become increasingly centralised. Every human system has become increasingly centralised, including health, education, research, science, government, pick a system. Increasingly centralised and increasingly transactional, also increasingly hierarchical. So by shifting towards ways that are more natural to life and life-centric ways of being distributed, cyclical and adaptive, and holistic, nested within other wholes. So if you place your hand on your heart for a moment, and I won't because I've got a microphone, but if you find your heart, and if you can feel your heart beating, actually I can really feel my heart beating quite loudly. The Purkinje fibres that are within your heart tissue, that are part of your circulatory system, in relationship with your respiratory system, and as you breathe out, exhaling carbon dioxide, you're creating the breath of trees that then breathe out oxygen that keeps us alive. So we find ourselves now in a rite of passage. And like any rite of passage, we don't know how it's going to turn out. We don't know if humanity is going to flourish or fail, but we're the generations that are going to have a lot to do with that over this next 10 years. So how might we grow up as a species to flourish? The good news is that it's complex, so there's a gazillion ways to do that. But we could start by honouring our humanity, our capacity of creative creatures, and our need for cultural connection. So of course it's tempting to simplify it, but it's wildly complex and wondrously mysterious. The arts, creative expression, cultural connection are essential to us being human, and for children and young people especially. It helps them develop a sense of who they are, to be in relationships with others, their family, their friends and their community, and to connect with the places that they live, that we live. We know when children are languishing that at best they turn up at a hospital, at worst they turn up in the youth justice system, or at times even a morgue. So what do we mean by arts? And one definition might be that it's the ways that we explore and express our ideas and imaginings. So I'm just going to flick through a few slides that talk about different forms of arts, and these images are mostly stock images because we don't have a lot of images that are consented to use by families and kids. But here's some ideas around writing, creative expression, writing poetry and literature. Of course, there's other forms, visual arts, sculpture, painting, drawing, printmaking, glassmaking, textiles work, film, content production, which a lot of kids are into now. I wouldn't necessarily call it very having arts of high artistic integrity, but all sorts of content production and the need to share stories. Music, of course, is one of the oldest forms of arts, as we know, and we're very, very blessed to be in a place which has among the world's oldest music. Performing arts and theatre is also really important for creative expression. In relation to culture, it's all the ways that we make sense of being in the world. Rituals, customs, ceremonies, beliefs, celebrations, values, identity, behaviours and language. And for many cultures, traditionally, these have evolved from the places that we've lived through connecting with the seasons, the landscapes, the stars, the sky, and nature's patterns. First Nations people in Australia and over 5,000 First Nations language groups around the world have endured for many thousands of years, adapting ways to live sustainably in their place by sharing knowledge and information through storytelling and song. And I had a chat with Uncle Moogie this morning, which was wonderful that he welcomed us to country yesterday morning, and asked if we could share his definition of connecting to country. And he was really happy about that, and I just want to read this out to you. So country for First Nations people here in Australia, for those of you who aren't familiar, is spelt with a capital C. So connection to country means that we are connected to everything around us. The land, the river, the lakes, the oceans, trees, plants and animals. Our miwi, or our gut, is our spirit. Our miwi connects to every living thing around us. It's our responsibility to care for country. It is part of our soul, and country will always provide for us and everything we need. Healthy country, healthy people. And this is an invitation to all of us to consider the ways that we interact with ourselves, each other, and place. So as we consider the role of arts and culture in humanity growing up, or not, it is a rite of passage, let's look at some of the research and the evidence. On the individual level, we know that arts improve self-esteem, self-confidence and identity. It builds reasoning, memory and problem-solving skills, decision-making skills, improves imagination and creativity, reduces anxiety, depression and loneliness, improves school performance, builds future job skills, such as curiosity, imagination and understanding complexity. It's also very important in healthcare, as we know, for processing really complex emotions, trauma, providing sanctuary and play. In relation to connecting with others and place, we know that it catalyses social connections, builds civic pride, promotes peace and tolerance, and gives us a sense of being bigger than something that's bigger than ourselves. So I'm just thinking of the time here, we've got a few minutes left. So what's that got to do with clinical tertiary healthcare, and how might arts and culture contribute to children and young people flourishing? So if we consider that from a complexity approach, how might arts and culture enrich the lives of children and young people in our care? So we might look at that in relation to the conditions, capability and capacity. So I'll lead you through a few questions to take with you. In relation to conditions, how might we cultivate the conditions for arts and culture to contribute to children and young people's flourishing? In terms of capability, what new ableness, skills and knowledge do we need to develop to enable this? And in relation to capacity, what existing systems and tools might enable this? Whether that's in relation to direct patient care across assessment and planning and program delivery, or infrastructure, policy, spaces. So one last time I'd like you to undertake another activity, and to do that I'll ask you to close your eyes again and take a deep breath. Depending on the context, whether you're spending most of your time in direct patient care or in managing systems, I invite you to either think of a child or a young person in your care, past or present, and hold them in your thoughts. Or, if you're working at the systems level, to think of a particular clinical unit or portfolio that you have responsibility for. I want you to imagine for a moment what's possible for this child or young person, or the unit or portfolio, at their highest order of functioning, at their greatest potential. How might arts and culture contribute to that potential? And what's one thing that you might do or influence that could help make that real? And what's the tiniest action you could take towards this? And holding that in mind, what is one word that best describes how you want to be as you take that action? Not who you want to be or what you want to do, but how you want to be. Just hold on to that word. When you're ready, open your eyes. And as we close, I'd just like you to share that one word with the person sitting next to you. Thank you.